Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume. The Used Car Superstore is your one-stop for most makes and models. Cars, trucks, vans, SUVs. Many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranties, and some are even local one-owner vehicles. Plus, Sheeler owns the finance company. Getting approved for credit is easy on the Motor Mile, with finance options for every budget. 900 used vehicles in stock now, more than any other dealer in the area. Hurry in for straightforward pricing and more inventory arriving daily. Why wait? Make it happen at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier family-owned car dealer serving Southwest Virginia and surrounding areas for 50 years. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Who would think indoor air can be hazardous to your health? Poor indoor air quality can cause health problems. Pollutants in your home can cause flu-like symptoms such as headaches, nausea, and respiratory irritation. A whole house air cleaner and sterilizer installed on your HVAC system is one of the most cost-effective solutions to combat poor indoor air quality. To find out more, all it takes is one call to the Comfort People at Terrell E. Mosley. Reach out to them at terrellemosley.com.
Hi, I'm Kim Holderness.
And I am Penn Holderness.
And we're here to remind you to get your cancer screenings.
Now, we don't have cancer, but we do want to keep it that way.
And while you don't have to race to the doctor.
Oh, but I like races, honey, especially when they're amazing races.
I see what you did there. But you do need to make time for routine screenings. I schedule my annual mammogram and gyno appointments every year around my birthday and then treat myself to lunch.
Well, that sounds like fun. Can I get in on that? I mean, I like lunch.
Well, you have a colon and you're over 45 and you have lungs.
Yeah.
And didn't you smoke in college?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so seriously, Penn, if there is something, early detection can make all the difference.
Okay, I'll get screened.
This C word can be scary, but routine screenings for breast, cervical, colorectal, lung, and prostate cancers can detect cancer early, even before symptoms appear.
Please visit preventcancer.org to find out which cancer screenings you need.
Because early detection equals better outcomes.
The local ties to the basketball courts are gone from this TroSlaw.com Fast Take and for the weekend in March Madness as Final Four action begins Friday with the women, Saturday with the men on the VTRN Sports app. Of course, no local ties to the basketball courts behind us in Forest because it's the middle of the day when we're doing this, but also no local ties to the Final Four. Now, some may be a while before we see them again, like Cinderella such as VCU and George Mason. Others, like Roger Ayers or even Virginia and ACC schools, expect them back sooner than later.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
Nope, not going to do it. I'm literally shaking my head for those watching at VTRN Sports and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook Live and YouTube, because we don't need to play the soundbite. But right before I was getting ready to post around 2 o'clock, the graphic previewing today's show at Fast Lane Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and VTRN Sports on our social media platforms as well. The news broke. North Carolina going out of left field, straight out of left field, and hiring Michael Malone from the NBA as their head basketball coach. Coached the Nuggets to their one championship with Nikola Jokic back a couple of years ago. I thought he was a good coach. It seemed like he had fallen out of favor with the stars. That's not shocking. That happens to pretty much every coach not named Brad Stevens, Eric Spoelstra, Phil Jackson, or Greg Popovich in the NBA. Like, I think I covered them all. Like, all the coaches, those four are the only ones that never seemingly fall out of favor with their coach. I guess maybe Joe Mazzulla in Boston right now, and God, why does his name escape me in Oklahoma City as well? But that collection of coaches, those are the ones who don't. Everybody else, including if you win a championship or make deep playoff runs, you get the axe. So I don't hold that against North Carolina in hiring Michael Malone. It's a little bit out of left field. It's not the Carolina family. I personally still would have waited for Billy Donovan. Not that you don't get some of what Billy Donovan could bring with Michael Malone. It's more transactional than it's ever been. There is an element of professionalization. And if you're operating at a bigger budget level, TJ, which is what North Carolina's stated goal is. I get that.
Yeah, no, I think the reason they went with the Malone hire, Ed, I think there was some inconsistencies with, from what I've heard, with the Donovan hiring potentially. So Mike Malone also had been around Carolina practices a lot, according to On3 Insider. So
his daughter plays volleyball for the
yeah,
Hills.
yeah. So he already had some connections there. He had won an NBA championship. He had dealt with the likes of Jokic, who is right now a top 3 NBA player. So
what is he? SGA and Wemby right
yeah,
now.
Yeah, SGA, Wemby, but Jokic is top 3. If you can exchange Jokic and Giannis, but that's a whole nother point.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'll hold out Halliburton and Tatum because of the injuries the last year and change.
Oh gosh, healthy Tatum is top 5. Yes,
but your point about that, I get. By inconsistencies, do you mean the timeline in particular? Transfer portal opens up like in a day or two.
Yes,
and I mean, not that players aren't entering the transfer portal already.
I mean, Dixon
Yeah, I mean, Tech's got some, Virginia's got some, Liberty's got some. Virginia women's basketball has almost the entire team. That's a whole nother can of worms. We will maybe moderately just gloss over it today in the fast lane because that deserves its own segment. Yeah. And we did a TroSlaw.com fast take earlier today on that. By we, I'm being the royal we, so please forgive me here. But the Billy Donovan one, in terms of getting the right coach, I still like Billy Donovan more. He has shown he can handle the transactional nature of basketball in the NBA. He's done as well as could be expected in Chicago with their inability to attract and or retain premium level talent. And without it, it's a challenge. And I mean, the egos are bigger. It's harder than ever before, especially now with the second apron, which I like because it spreads talent around more and more teams have the dreaded 4-letter word here of being able to win, a dreaded amount of hope because of that. But I would have waited, but I'll grant Carolina the understanding that if you had to wait another week for Donovan, because that's what all indications were, I think he's worth it. But you are falling behind on the transfer portal, which is opening tomorrow, and it puts you in a tough bind. And I do also say this. I'll be curious what the contract structure is set up. They might have leaked it and announced it already. If they have, please forgive me for not checking it out. I haven't been on Fastlane, Ed Lane on Twitter, maybe as much as I should to get my usher on. But, shorter contracts mean you can get out of a coach sooner if things go south.
And buyout. Look, the best part about hiring a former NBA coach, no buyout either. They wouldn't have had to do a buyout with Donovan either. But no buyout with Malone. That's probably the saving grace of not getting a Dusty Mays or Arizona's head coach, whose name slips my mind for some reason. But
Tommy Lloyd,
yeah. So I think Carolina, they shot for the stars. They shot for Brad Stevens. Immediate no. And they went out and got a guy that's dealt with egos. Carolina brings in egos, and Malone has dealt with egos. He dealt with Russell Westbrook, which probably ultimately got him fired. But
I mean, look, Russell Westbrook is in the camp of like your Paul Georges, James Hardens, where they've got many people fired. Yeah. Many people have been fired because of that. No bitter Philadelphia 76er fan coming out with those two references here. Not at all. By the way, I'm curious because Bryson Gordon, newsadvance.com, big Carolina fan. He'll be speaking with Trey in the morning warm-up on Wednesday. Can't wait for that. I know I'm just bypassing the show tomorrow. I mean, you should check it out, 7 to 8 a.m. right here, VTR and Sports app at 93.3 tomorrow. Lake Lewis talking NFL. But I'm really looking forward to Wednesdays to hearing Bryson's reaction live on air and if the emotions have settled down at all when he gets a chance to speak. I don't think it's horrible for Carolina. I get the line of thinking for the Heels. I still think Donovan is worth waiting for. Yeah. I do not believe that I can understand for the other college coaches. Lloyd and May seemed like long shots in the sense of they're coming off of great seasons with their schools. They are the priority as it relates to Arizona basketball. That's the priority over Arizona football. So when you're talking about budget-conscious schools, and the ACC and the Big 12 have more budget-conscious schools than the cash-flowing Big 10 and, to a lesser extent, SEC. But let's be real here. The Big 10 could win a national championship in basketball. SEC did last year, and they've won 3 straight in football. They are now the kings of college football. SEC. They rake in the most money. And it is hard to pry people away from that, even if you're the Carolina brand, which is a strong brand.
It is.
Because the ability to procure talent via the amount of resources you can allocate is such a driving factor and is such a major influence.
Well, Ed, and I'll even say this, though. Carolina brand is still big. You want to know why? Because these schools were locking down coaches with extensions. Nate Oates, Bama locked him in with an extension. Tommy Lloyd, even before the loss to Michigan, locked him in. Michigan forced Dusty Mays to come out and say, hey, I'm not going anywhere, right? Even Phil Martelli and them signed extensions because these schools are so worried to lose their guys. And Mark Byington, by the way, former JMU coach, Vanderbilt finally got him to sign an extension to keep him from going to Carolina.
So it's interesting you bring up that point as well, TJ, about this. And I know Tech and UVA are the dominant ACC schools in our area, but Carolina, Duke, they're big enough brands. And I mean, look, I don't think people around here are like holding their breath at what happens at Boston College or, sorry, but not really. Again, why are they in the ACC or Pitt or the California schools? But Duke and Carolina and some of the other bigger brands, they do matter in terms of that. And look, first-time college coaches have succeeded. Professional coaches coming to college in basketball, there's not a ton of that. And I'm not counting Rick Pitino and John Calipari in that because they were college coaches who failed in the NBA and just came back to college. So there's not a big track record of from professional down to the college ranks. But I don't think it's as unfounded to go from one to the other as it would have been years ago. And so I get the thinking behind that for Carolina. I just still would have waited for Donovan because the one saving grace of Billy Donovan is, yes, we touched on the egos of coaching in the NBA like Mark Malone, and they both navigated that. They both are understanding of how, agent BS, if you will, and all of the like player agent, what's legit, what's just, hey, we're trying to pump it up to get a better offer for a particular player. But there is still an age range of relating to and coaching younger people in college, even with the fact that you get some one and dones or two and throughs on an NBA roster. That's all you're basically getting even with your Testa-Ritters and your other players that are professionals overseas coming to college. That's the majority, like Virginia, for example. Testa-Ritter is the minority. The majority of players are 21 or younger at Virginia, and that's who you have to coach and deal with that dynamic. And Billy Donovan has done it and can blend his NBA knowledge, which Malone has, with that other knowledge. And that, to me, is the sweet spot that he could have provided and would have been worth waiting for. But to your point as well on the extensions. I know I got distracted for a second.
No, you're fine.
To your point on the extensions. By the way, you can confession for a moment. I'm stoked. I'm getting ready in the next few weeks to meet with Central Virginia Counseling. Try to figure out, like, is it ADD, ADHD? Is it just a lot of stuff going on in life? Is it everything? I'm curious. It's awesome. I'm looking to be the best version of myself. So I am stoked about that. I'm going to go to the Wigington Road location, but they also have one on Timberlake Road in Lynchburg. Anyway, for that, when you look at the Carolina, the point you made about getting other coaches pay raises, what jumps out to me is the attractiveness of the job. I think you hit the nail on the head with that, TJ, because Tommy Lloyd came out when he spoke about his extension before the Final Four loss that you heard this past Saturday on the VTR and Sports app. He spoke with the media on Friday, and he said he seriously entertained the Carolina job because it's Carolina. Like, I haven't heard from Dusty May, and maybe we'll hear more about it after tonight's game that you'll be able to hear. Coverage begins right after the Fast Lane on the VTR and Sports app. But when you hear Dusty May, I'll be very curious if he says, hey, I'm staying in Michigan, but it's Carolina. I had to pay attention to it. All the schools know about the allure and brand appeal of Carolina. And I will say this about Malone. Presuming it's probably going to be I would think maybe a 4 to 5 year deal as opposed to like 6 to 7 year deal. And so your outdated 6-7 joke here. That gives you the flexibility if it's not working after a couple of years to cut bait and get out of there. And I don't think recruits are freaking out because the coach only has 2 years left on his contract. What is it going to? How many of these guys are sticking around that long? Like, it's not an albatross the way it used to be, where like every coach you wanted to have at least a 4-year extension for the recruiting class that you're selling. How many of these guys stick around for 4 years? Less than 50%. So you don't have to worry about that now. So higher money, but shorter deals for coaches. And Michael Malone fitting that. I think Carolina, if it blows up, you can always go back to the well with somebody else again in the future.
And I think we've seen NBA coaches or players drop to the college level before, but with college basketball being such a transactional type era nowadays where you got to deal with agents now, I think you're going to see more NBA coaches that can't get a job in the NBA anymore to drop down into college basketball. Don't be shocked if Doc Rivers gets fired again that he goes down
Win.
to college. Win, because
No
let's be
bitter
hon-
Sixers
the
fan again.
Milwaukee Bucks situation is not good. And let's be honest, if they lose Giannis, stock is gone. Well, let's be honest.
Oh, for sure. That's a great point, though. I think we could see that. No, so I think there is a level of that you're going to get more of with coaches and how they handle these situations.
Because you've dealt with agents. It's free agency now with the portal. So Brett Decker Jr., for example, and his agent, if you got an NBA coach doing that kind of deal, you're probably going to secure the deal better if you have an NBA coach because he knows how to approach it. Unlike, for example, a coach that doesn't know how to do these kind of transactional things in college, like who's used to the old ways.
And I don't think that's as much like a knock on McKay. Like Liberty was going to lose Decker. I think within a week or two, when he picks his next home, you're going to find out that it's probably one of these schools that is paying everyone on the roster upper 6 to 7 figures. And it just was not in the financial cards for Liberty to keep him.
He's going to Kentucky. I guarantee you. There's Liberty ties at Kentucky.
Yeah, there absolutely is. Coach McKay's son has been on staff there.
Yeah.
There's that possibility. Could he go to Virginia? I think Virginia would be willing to pay for him. Alabama. People don't know this, but there are a lot of ties at Alabama for Liberty as well because of the connections of certain people that work with the Alabama basketball program to Liberty. And Alabama's one of those. Yeah. Well, not just him, but Henry, who was in the performance coach department as well. They've got a couple of those. So, again, and all it takes is 2. Because when you get more than one, or as LeBron would remind us,
not one,
but more than one, then you can get a bidding war to an extent. It doesn't mean Brett Decker Jr. is going to get $20 million a year from the bidding war, but it means the number will go up well north of what Liberty probably was going to be able to pay him. So you can, and it can be astronomical to be like, how did he get that? I mean, we see it in NFL free agency for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I'm an Eagles fan. Jalen Phillips. Philly was willing to pay him apparently $25 million a year. Well, when Philly started going up with their offer, they went to the Panthers, and the Panthers were so desperate, they went up to $30 million a year. Still, I am shocked by that. I would love to have seen him back in Philly, but not $30 million a year and $88 million guaranteed. So when I put that down, that's the thing where I would sit there and go, okay, you have to have your walk away number. And for Liberty, it's probably below what any program is going to pay. So again, your point, though, about coaches navigating it, there are certain programs where you kind of wonder if everyone there understands exactly the game in which they're playing, or if they're just frankly ready to tap out and say, this is not for us. Because I do wonder if we're going to get to a reckoning where, and this is my thing, big picture note for the ACC, a little detour, by the way, here in the fast lane.
Time to take a detour in the fast lane.
The SEC and the Big Ten are where they are, and maybe they are what they are. But if there's no level of a super league in college football that comes sooner, I do wonder if even before then or at some point, you have a haves and have-nots within the ACC. I mean, you're already kind of seeing it in terms of programs that spend or want to spend versus don't spend and don't want to spend on a certain level. And you're seeing some where there's selective spenders in the sports in which they will spend or in which they will not spend. And that's another thing that you're seeing in the ACC. Carolinas, Miami's, those programs spending everywhere. Your NC States for Virginia Techs, they're spending selectively in certain sports. Tech, a lot of it's going to football. I get why it should go there, but we're seeing basketball, men's and women's, struggle to retain certain players off of their roster. Women's basketball hit over the weekend. Virginia Tech, I think they'll be able to keep maybe Hansberry and Hammond, but Gerdak, you couldn't keep him. It's hard to keep them all with where you are. And so we'll get into all that in covering the Commonwealth. But I think we're starting to see that. And you may see programs like pretty much the entire Wake basketball roster with Steve Forbes returning, transferring. Heard there's challenges paying players down there in Winston-Salem relative to market. And they're wondering, is this a game we can keep up with long term? And that's in basketball, where you only need a 12-person roster. Heaven help us if you're thinking football, where you just need more bodies and people that are on the field. Like, they play Miami in football this year, but they're not playing the same game in terms of how you construct your roster. Miami's got that whole U-Health thing with the University of Miami health system, which is kind of like the Virginia health system, except it's down there, not up here. And there's so much money flowing through that it's a big financial backer, not to mention there's a lot of extra cash that goes around Miami through different ventures. Virginia has that. Virginia Tech, selective. Florida State, they're in financial troubles. Lawsuit certainly didn't help. Clemson's got money, but they have a coach in football where do you really want to give him a lot of the money considering his challenges generating results? I think that situation will get more tenuous. Louisville will spend. SMU, when we're the few billion, what's a couple $100 million? But the California schools, Boston College, Wake Forest, you're seeing some Pitt where their football roster was gutted by the transfer portal. And, that's a primary sport. Basketball is secondary there. Like, you're starting to see a clear delineation of haves and have-nots. Heck, even Georgia Tech losing a ton of their staff to other schools this past offseason because of the difficulties keeping up financially. So, in the meantime,
after Ed's potentially unnecessary detour, let's get back on the road in the fast lane.
Do you think people at UVA athletics are going to have to go to CVA counseling after this whole women's basketball coach debacle?
oh my goodness. I mean, I don't want to speak for anybody in particular, but you kind
No.
of wonder if the players are.
Yeah.
Like Jerry Ratcliffe and by the way, I'll say this. Jerry is not 100% right with his reporting. He takes some shots and misses, but he also takes some shots and is pretty accurate with them and does know what's going on in some areas. And when they were talking about coaching staff changes for basketball and for football, a couple of years ago, Anthony Poindexter, defensive coordinator, was one of those where, would he stick around? Would he not? Would he be the head coach? It turned out to be Tony Elliott, not, Anthony Poindexter. Like, there were enough other people that backed him up on that. So it's not like he was the only one who got in trouble for reporting it incorrectly. But he's the first one who's come out and said there was a toxic culture and a culture of abuse within women's basketball, which prompted the coach Mock's dismissal. And we'll let him share his insights in just a moment, but he brought it up Saturday night. And then after that, it hits USA Today and mainstream brings that up. And yes, I do wonder if Talissa Goodman, whose dad is Jeff Goodman of the Field of 68, she's a fantastic women's basketball reporter. She's really good at her craft. But she brought it up first about the coach Mock's dismissal. She's the one who broke the news. But it was Hootie who broke the idea of why it went down.
Yeah.
And everyone else is kind of piggybacking off of that. And that's where tip of the cap, because he's not batting 100%, but that shows how plugged in Hootie is on certain situations. And this is one of those examples. I do wonder for women's basketball, like Kamora Johnson entering the transfer portal today, for example. Yeah.
Oh, man.
But look, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, she's the type of player that if you get the right head coach, that coach might be able to convince her to come back to Virginia. You have to expedite that on your priority list. I don't think anybody ever thought they would say it, but football's running in a good spot with Tony Elliott. It seems like they have their act together and there's only one portal window. Basketball, good spot with Ryan Odom. I know they're in the transfer portal window. Chance Mallory announcing he's coming back today. I love how players have to do that, by the way. But, they're in a spot where I trust Ryan Odom, knows what he's doing.
Absolutely.
So well enough to where they're going to be fine. The priority has to be for women's basketball for the Lady Who's, especially when you have Alexis Ohanian, who is the big financial backer, where there are resources. I'm not saying you're going to get Dawn Staley. It'd be great if she came.
Oh, gosh.
I think it's a long shot, but never say never. But if she were to come back to Virginia and say, look, it's been real South Carolina, I've given you everything, but this is my alma mater, I've got to go back and help them out. Look, it'd be a shot in the arm for Virginia women's basketball. It'd be awesome if it happened from an outside observer standpoint. But that you've got to focus your efforts now, if you're Virginia, on women's basketball. It's not the primary moneymaker. In fact, it's a money loser in a lot of cases. But because the other programs are running well, and this is still an important hire, you've got to make the most of this if you're Carla Williams.
Yeah, I agree. It would be great to see them pick up Dawn Staley and be like, hey, we made a mistake a few years ago when we told you we didn't want to hire you. Are you willing to come back if we throw a bunch of money at you?
I mean, Alexis Ohanian can make that happen. I wouldn't put it past him. I know South Carolina is losing $6 to $7 million a year. 6-7 joke again. $6 to $7 million a year in money in basketball. He might be able to help make up for that. Just saying. In the meantime, when we return here in the Fast Lane, we will discuss that story with Jerry Ratcliffe. We'll also discuss the big but not shocking departure for JMU men's basketball and a little Commanders draft talk. We will get to our thoughts on, ironically, Dawn Staley, the Gino Auriemma beef that is worth discussing. I think there's a lesson that some of the local coaches have been able to share that could be imparted on them. We'll try to get to that tomorrow in the Fast Lane. And then we need to get into a full weekend review for Olympic sports. Virginia baseball, not good weekend. Virginia lacrosse, great weekend. Tech softball rallied 2 of 3, not bad at Clemson. Tech baseball lost 2 of 3 to Miami, but they did win yesterday on the VTR in Sports app. Liberty baseball and softball, it's funny. Baseball is ahead of softball, one of the rare times that's happened recently. We need an overview and a deep dive into all of that at a different time. But when we return in the Fast Lane, your teams, your topics, covering the Commonwealth, next on the VTR in Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTR in Sports.
Spring's here, finally. So visit Leesville Landscape Supplies for a slam dunk on your next home or business landscape project. Get the region's best mulch, plus decorative stone, propane, block, and hardscape materials for routine lawn care. Leesville Landscape Supplies has grass seed, fertilizer, straw, and topsoil, even hardwood mulch, dyed mulch, pine mulch, gravel, and sand. Start your spring project at Leesville Landscape Supplies at the corner of Water Lake and Leesville Road in Lynchburg. And pick there or have it delivered. Search 24/7 at LeesvilleLandscapes.com.
What do high-performing athletes have in common? They don't just train their bodies, they train their minds. The best competitors have a strong mental support system that keeps them focused, confident, and at the top of their game. Want that same support in your own life? Central Virginia Counseling can help. No matter what life throws your way, our team is here for you with 2 Lynchburg locations on Wigington Road and Timberlake Road and telehealth available anywhere in Virginia. Take the first step today. Visit centralvirginiacounseling.com.
Are you sick of running your dryer longer just to dry your clothes? It might not be a dying appliance. It might be a clogged up dryer vent. Call Black Goose Chimney Service to find out. Their certified ventilation specialists don't just diagnose chimneys. They also clean dryer vents through the entire ventilation system. Get peace of mind as you're protected from lint clogging your dryer vents, one of the most common causes of house fires. Call Black Goose Chimney Service today and visit blackgoose.net to schedule your dryer vent cleaning.
Every Saturday night, after the Hill City Howlers play ball at City Stadium, the best fireworks in the region light up the Lynchburg sky. It's the perfect way to end a perfect night. Baseball, family, and a show you won't forget. Get your tickets now at hchowlers.com. That's hchowlers.com. Howl out loud.
Spring is a season of fresh starts, and it's the perfect time to refresh your finances too. Whether you're opening a new checking account, planning a home project, or exploring lending options, Farmers Bank offers personalized service and local expertise you can count on. We're here to help you grow, save, and plan for what's next, this season and beyond. Stop by your nearest branch or visit us online to learn more. Farmers Bank, your community, your bank, your future.
When you walk into Haley's, you see the size and selection of a big box store. Over 19,000 square feet of appliances and mattresses. Leading appliances like KitchenAid, Whirlpool, Maytag, Genair, Speed Queen, GE, and Monogram. And mattresses like Sealy, Serta, and Tempur-Pedic. So what's the difference? A family, locally owned business. And a staff committed to servicing you over the entire life of the product. That means before, during, and well after your purchase. Visit Haley's today, just off Ward Road in Lynchburg. Haley's, quality that counts.
VTRN Sports is now heading to YouTube. Head to youtube.com/@VTRN Sports Lynchburg to watch both the morning warm-up with Trey Lyle and the Fast Lane with Ed Lane live each day. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and have notifications turned on. All the great local content you love with VTRN Sports is now on YouTube. Subscribe to the VTRN Sports YouTube channel at youtube.com/@VTRN Sports Lynchburg.
Hi, this is Bill Roth, voice of Virginia Tech football. It's time to start jumping. This is your home for the Hokies, VTRN Sports 93.3 FM and the VTRN Sports app.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Forever a Cowboy, forever a Wolfpack, forever a Duke, but forever ours.
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the JMU Dukes.
With Shane Metlin of DNRonline.com. He's at Shane_DNR Sports. Covers the JMU Dukes, and he's hanging out with us today here in the Fast Lane. Shane, a pleasure to be speaking with you. Tap of the cap to you. It's not like this was shocking, but you called this a week or so ago when you and Katie Harper were on the Purple and Bold podcast of Justin McBride entering the transfer portal. Did JMU make a serious effort to retain him, or were they aware that a player who has a history of transferring, he's forever an Oklahoma State Cowboy, forever a Nevada Wolfpack, now forever a JMU Duke, and pretty soon he'll forever be somebody else, forever 4 teams. It's amazing now. that this was always likely the route he was going to go.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on maybe how you define serious effort. I think, they had the conversation. They asked him, "What are you thinking? What are you looking for?" And then when, that's not what JMU is going to be able to offer, they didn't spend a lot of time trying to convince him otherwise. I think they've been through that before with some other players, namely Bryce Lindsey last year, who ended up going to Villanova. They spent time and effort trying to convince him that JMU was the place for him, and maybe missed out on some other people because of the time they were spending there, or didn't get on didn't have a head start on some guys who could have been his replacement. So yeah, this was expected. This was even about as soon as they were out of the Sun Belt tournament, I had people close to the program telling me, he knows what kind of offers he's going to get. There are other guys we're looking to make a real effort and that we think we can retain and we want to keep around.
So is one of the big lessons for Preston Spradlin and maybe other coaches at this level, knowing when a guy has a really good season, especially if he's got an agent, which most of these guys do, it's unlikely you're going to be able to keep him. So you make an offer, you have the conversations out of respect for each other, but when you realize what he's looking for and how far it is from you, you say, thanks, best of luck, and you have to move on.
Yeah, and maybe it's not even always just, he had a good season. In Justin McBride's case, it's a guy who came in to college as, really highly recruited 4-star player. And this was the first year maybe he lived up to that. And it's his last year of eligibility. He doesn't have an NBA body or necessarily an NBA game. So this might be his big opportunity to cash in, before maybe having to go to Europe or somewhere to play professional basketball. But with 1 year of eligibility left, they kind of knew this was his last opportunity to go looking for that big payday. It may be different with somebody who maybe you say, come back and average 25 points a game next year and then see what kind of offers you get, as opposed to somebody, this is like their last go around.
Are you expecting any more big dominoes to drop for the JMU Dukes as far as players entering the transfer portal that could cause a serious ripple effect? Or at this point, do you, and more importantly for Duke fans, does Preston Spradlin know, all right, here's probably what we're looking at, and they're already able to make plans to reconstruct the roster?
I think Preston Spradlin, knows basically what people have told him their plans are. The question now is when we're going to see some announcements. I don't know, like, for instance, Christian Brown, who was a freshman, who didn't put up huge numbers, but he did set the freshman program record for block shots. A lot of potential there. He's somebody they want to keep around. Whether or not they're going to yet has not been announced. So that's the one I'm kind of really looking forward to. Other than that, it's more, maybe one or two guys who could be, depth pieces, but then it's who are they going to bring in to kind of be the producers and round out the starting lineup next year.
Last one for Shane Metlin of DNRonline.com. He's at Shane_DNR Sports and covers the JMU Dukes. President Trump, the executive order on Friday afternoon, what a time for that, by the way, about the college basketball limitations, one-time transfer, the ability to make money, 5 years of eligibility essentially for every player. Are you sitting there going, if you're a Dukes fan, yes, this changes everything, or are you in major wait and see, particularly if this passes the House?
Yeah, it's a wait and see. This is basically, the White House saying, here's what we think would be good. Now go figure it out, because the executive order itself it won't change anything that's been decided in the courts. It won't change anything that goes to the courts in the future. But it's a directive of saying this would be great if this could be worked out. And then the question is, does that happen in Congress? Does that happen with some sort of collective bargaining, a new system in college sports, something other than the NCAA? That's the big question. I don't think the executive order itself is really going to change a lot.
There we go. Shane Metlin with us here in the Fast Lane. Shane, thank you for your overview of that. That's one of those great evergreen topics that more info will keep coming out. We can just keep asking about as the offseason progresses. We'll keep it locked to DNRonline.com for the latest.
Thanks, Ed.
Now to UVA.
Hootie! JerryRatcliffe.com founder and contributor Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe. Hootie, great to be speaking with you. First of all, hat tip to you. Well, it was Talissa Goodman, who's the daughter of Jeff Goodman. She's a really good women's basketball reporter who broke the news about the Coach Mox firing. you were the one who delved greater in to the idea that the reason behind this was a toxic culture at Virginia. So we will allow you the opportunity, as much as you care to and haven't done already, at jerryratcliffe.com, to expound upon what transpired that would prompt Carla Williams to say, we've got to make a change, even though Coach Mox just guided Virginia to their first Sweet 16 in a quarter century.
Well, Ed, I haven't been in this business for a long time. I noticed that you usually don't get such a terse release. I think it was 3 sentences long from a university when it expels a coach or dismisses a coach, and the language was very vague. So I knew something was up. I couldn't figure out exactly what. So I started calling around to some of my sources, and I'll have to admit I was stunned at what I found out, and just the abuse that Coach Mox had dished out to players, support staff, and that was never evident during games or press conference or anything like that, but it was all day-to-day behind-the-scenes stuff that most fans and media would never realize unless they were there at practice or even beyond that. And so the more I dug, the more I found out, and the worse it got. I think Virginia didn't do itself any favors by not initially announcing that there had been a 4-month investigation in behind the scenes into her behavior. That's plenty of time to find out. Apparently this has been going on for at least 2 years, if not longer. But the investigation only began 4 months ago. But, I've been contacted by some people since my initial story came out that it's one of those deals where the more you peel the onion, the worse things get. So I have to verify some of that information, but it's pretty ugly if it's true.
Your dog even knows there needed to be change, and he's confirming that for us today.
I told you he was a big fan of yours.
It warms my heart that furry friends like to be around me. If I'm around him, he's getting a free belly rub, so he's got to be ready for that. Although I know with some dogs, once you start, it never ends. So that may be the case. Meantime, for Virginia basketball, is Virginia sports, Jerry, in a strong enough spot to where they can dedicate the necessary attention to getting this hire right? Because football seems in a good spot. Men's basketball does, where even if, NIL fundraising things need to take a back seat for a couple weeks, they're good there. Is this now Carla Williams' primary focus in finally getting a job right, which, let's be real, is, she is not, has kind of eluded her on finding the perfect blend of success plus character?
It has to be, Ed, and it's kind of shocking that, considering that is her sport, where she excelled at as a player and was an assistant college coach, that she hasn't been able to land a good coach. The past 2 coaches women's coaches have been disasters, really. If you look at their overall record and how they ran their programs. And that's kind of a mystery, because she seems to have gotten all the other hires right. And she has to bring in somebody really solid this time. I don't know if it'll be a big name. It's hard to tell exactly what they're shopping for, other than somebody who's very stable and who could win. But, considering that this investigation went on for 4 months, she's had plenty of time. And I would think that well into the investigation, she probably realized there was going to have to be a change in leadership at the end of the season. So I imagine this has afforded her time to go out and maybe back channel some really good coaches, agents, and fill them out and see if, who might be available. And it's a situation where she really has to get it right, and I would imagine this would happen rather quickly if she's done her homework, because the portal opened today, and there's already, as of noon today, we're already 6 players, Virginia players, in the portal, are intending to go into the portal, including Mo Johnson, who is a potential future All-American.
We'll ask it because we have to, although I don't think it'll happen. Dawn Staley to Virginia. That's not happening, is it?
I don't think it could happen. I'll never say it's impossible, because you never know what might happen that you don't expect. We've seen some crazy things happen, but it would take a lot of money, I think, and she would have to have some really strong heart tugs to come back to her alma mater. I know that her relationship with UVA was patched up by Carla a couple of years ago, so I don't think that is a barrier anymore like it was before. But it's awfully hard to leave her situation and just kind of start all over again. Although if anybody could do it, I would think Dawn would be capable of rebuilding a national championship program here. But the odds of that happening are probably slim.
Jerry, we'll wrap it up on this. We're starting to get players, right as we've spoken, Johan Grunlow joining Testa Ritter and Chance Mallory and announcing they're going to come back for Virginia men's basketball. I mean, again, maybe that points to why Carla Williams should focus on the women's, because it seems like Virginia men's basketball, they're in a spot where if they want to keep a guy back, they have the financial resources to do so. Do you expect them to also be strong players for upgrading their roster when the transfer portal officially opens tomorrow? Not that they haven't maybe been having conversations with agents like everybody else.
I do. I know they have been. I mean, that was a big bonus today when DeRitter said he was coming back. We kind of figured the other guys would, but DeRitter is the key. I mean, he's potential ACC Player of the Year next year if he has a better season, and he should. So, there's not many 30-win teams in the country that essentially has 4 starters returning. So I would think that bodes very well, and I would think it would help them attract players from the portal. I mean, who wouldn't want to be a part of that gang, right?
Not at all. I mean, I would. I think, if you got the money, Virginia, if the money is good, Virginia's style is very favorable, especially what they showed this year. Hitting more on the Who's basketball, more on the Chandler Morris situation, and heck, more on women's basketball. We haven't even gotten to Olympic sports, which have been up and down in a unique way in the spring. We appreciate your coverage. We'll get to all that when we chat again.
Absolutely, Ed. Thank you, brother.
Jerry Ratcliffe with us here in the Fast Lane.
Now to Just For You haters, left hand up the Commanders.
Madam President of Bowie TV Sports, Candy Waller, is with us here in the Fast Lane. Seawall, great to be speaking with you. I hope your fast went well for Resurrection Weekend. Mine did. I managed to make it through the 5K that I ran on Saturday. Not my best, but for 40 hours was when it started. I was 40 hours into it. I'll take it by all means. I pray you had a good Resurrection Weekend and things are well for you. Meanwhile, for the NFC East, for the Washington Commanders, is it just watching what's going on in Philadelphia and saying, please join the Dallas Cowboys in creating a smoldering mess?
Yeah, I mean, it's something else, isn't it? What's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles, with the Jalen Hurts story dropping as soon as ever back from the owners' meeting. I thought that was rather convenient. And then, of course, the Dexter Lawrence requesting a trade today from the Giants. So it's kind of nice to see the rest of the NFC East in a swirl right now.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about how much that's the reality, and yet here we are with the NFC East, and here we are with the Washington Commanders. Seawall, you mentioned all of that. For the Washington Commanders right now, they've got their own challenges, namely identifying what to do with that 7th pick in the NFL draft. Are you more and more convinced that Jeremiah Love would be a great addition with Jaden Daniels? But it's seeming like I would be shocked if he gets past, ironically, you mentioned the Giants, but number 5 in the Giants, maybe not even getting past number 4 in the Titans.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And now with the consideration that there could actually be some opportunities for teams to trade up in the top 10, perhaps the Cleveland Browns find a trade back partner for themselves. It's kind of hard to believe that Jeremiah Love will be available at 7. He has continued and has been consistent that most teams believe that he is the best overall player in this draft. So I'm so certain if it's not going at 4 or 5, someone could absolutely move up to get him before 7 nonetheless.
Madam President, Candy Waller with us here in the Fast Lane. Seawall, you mentioned the trade-up possibility. I know Jeremiah Love would be attractive for the Commanders, but because of not having a second-round pick and having a dearth of total picks in the early portion of the draft this year, does that basically rule the Commanders out of any likelihood of trading up, even if Jeremiah Love is their guy?
Yeah, and you have to look at it and say, well, how many trade assets do they have? If we even go back to last year's draft, the Commanders just stuck with their 5 picks. They stuck with their 5. Adam Peters shared that they had opportunities to move back. They did get calls, but they said we're staying put. So this could be very similar this year as well.
Madam President, Candy Waller of Bowie TV Sports with us here in the Fast Lane. Seawall, great to be speaking with you. We will chat again in another week or so. We are getting ever closer to the draft and getting into the nuts and bolts of how it will all impact the Washington Commanders.
Absolutely. I look forward to talking to you guys again soon.
Madam President, Candy Waller with us here in the Fast Lane. When we return, we have some Hill City Howlers. Good, strong weekend to start the year for them. We have some NASCAR. The Rock was where the Xfinity and Truck Series were, and Michael Massey was there. And the Virginia Tech Hokies. Lots of transfers for men's and women's basketball. Is it a bigger picture sentiment in direction for the program? David Cunningham will cap off part 2 of covering the Commonwealth next here in the Fast Lane.
Here we grow again at the Sheeler Motor Mile. It's here, the all-new Motor Mile Chevrolet and Buick in Radford. More brands, more selection, and the same exceptional service you expect from a trusted community partner. Whether you're shopping Chevrolet or Buick, you'll find quality, value, and a team that puts you first. From rugged trucks and SUVs to stylish cars and family-friendly vehicles, the Motor Mile has something for everyone. With straightforward pricing and top dollar for your trade, there's no better place to buy. Bring us your trade, newer, older, paid off or not, and see why your car is worth more on the Motor Mile. Plus, with more inventory arriving daily, now is the time to shop the Motor Mile. Sheeler owns the finance company and makes getting approved for credit simple and easy on the Motor Mile. Flexible financing options for every budget to get you on the road fast. Experience the Motor Mile at 3 convenient locations: Christiansburg, Radford, and Pulaski. For over 50 years, we've got Southwest Virginia covered. The all-new Motor Mile Chevrolet and Buick in Radford. Certified friendly staff. No games, no gimmicks. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at MotorMileChevroletBuick.com.
Do you love the 80s? Whether you were Team Madonna or Prince, this night is for you. Hi, I'm Kelly Diaz with Casa of Central Virginia, inviting you to Retro Rewind, our totally rad 80s party for a great cause. Join us April 11th from 6 to 10 at the Boonesboro Ruritan Club for an awesome 80s DJ, arcade games, dance floor, and more. Best of all, every ticket helps Casa volunteers advocate for children who have experienced abuse or neglect in our community. Grab your friends, moonwalk over to cvcasa.org, and get your tickets before they're gone.
Midday hunger hitting you hard? Swing by Macadoo's for our $8.95 weekday lunch specials. Whether you're craving a classic crunch or something fresh, we've got you covered. Chicken tender basket featuring crispy golden tenders served with fries. The Macadoo's Chef Salad, the healthy, loaded favorite that will hit the spot. Hit back against your lunchtime hunger at Macadoo's with eats that won't break the bank.
It's time to share great food and fun. Just to be there, the only one. Just to be there at Macadoo's.
We'll see you at the Do's.
If you own a diesel truck or diesel fleet, it's time to go wicked and get serviced for the spring. And when you go wicked, take 25% off your service request for a limited time. Wicked Diesel in Bedford will allow 25% off a transmission flush, coolant flush, oil change, differential service, or AC service. Your choice. Just tell Josh you want that 25% off service special. Download the coupon at wickeddieselva.com. Need diesel repair? Go wicked.
Spring's here, finally. So visit Leesville Landscape Supplies for a slam dunk on your next home or business landscape project. Get the region's best mulch, plus decorative stone, propane, block, and hardscape materials, routine lawn care. Leesville Landscape Supplies has grass seed, fertilizer, straw, and topsoil, even hardwood mulch, dyed mulch, pine mulch, gravel, and sand. Start your spring project at Leesville Landscape Supplies at the corner of Water Lake and Leesville Road in Lynchburg. And pick there or have it delivered. Search 24/7 at LeesvilleLandscapes.com.
Hey, this is Virginia Tech analyst and former Hokies tight end Mike Burnham. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Not bad. Not perfect, but not bad to start.
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with
the Hill City Howlers. One day I'm going to get our voice guy to do that along with this is the Fast Lane with TJ Wilkerson open and rejoin. Got to be more professional on my end. Meanwhile, somebody who is professional because he is their play-by-play broadcaster, and you'll be able to start hearing his tones once again tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. over at City Stadium for opening night. Jason Prill, broadcaster for the Hill City Howlers, with us here in the Fast Lane. Jason, a pleasure to speak with you. We will get to that in just a moment. I hope you had a great Resurrection weekend. The Hillcats, it wasn't perfect, but they took 2 of 3 at Kannapolis to start the season. Overall, is that a reasonable assessment? Not perfect, but not bad.
Yeah, and I don't think anything's going to be perfect at this point in the season. I left feeling pretty confident about where this team sits and where this team stands after 2 games. They're hitting 320 now. It's a very small sample size, but this is an offense that can get runners aboard and can move guys around, which was our struggle point last year. And then other than the one pitching performance in the first inning on Sunday evening, their pitching staff, the Hill City Howlers pitching staff, was about as good as you could possibly get. They limited Kannapolis' opportunities. They kept runners off base, and they racked up the strikeouts. So this is a team that I'm really excited about. I think there's a lot of talent. I think other than one bad inning over the course of a 3-game series kind of spoiled the bunch. But for the most part, I think this is a team that's going to be really exciting to watch over the next couple months.
No doubt it will. They will be a lot of fun. Meanwhile, they get ready to take on the Fredericksburg Nationals. I almost said Kannapolis Intimidators. That was the opponent this past weekend. Opening night tomorrow night. What's the vibe for you? Do you get more excited for like July 4th, Independence Day, because it's mid-season and everyone loves fireworks? Is opening night the most exciting because it's finally back? Where does this rank on the Jason Prill excitement meter?
Well, obviously a championship is always going to top the list for excitement purposes. But in all seriousness, there's 4th of July is special. And don't get me wrong, I love the 4th of July. I love the packed house. I love the fireworks. I love everything that goes into the 4th of July, especially with the America 250 this year. It's going to be a great time. But opening night is just something so special. It's the dawn of a new day. It's the bringing forth into summer. We've left the cold behind. We're finally welcoming sunshine, longer days, the smell of the hot dogs, the fresh cut grass. There's just something that screams new life about baseball season being back. And to me, that's so much fun. There's energy, there's excitement, there's passion, and it's your first chance to get to see what this team is going to look like. So for me, excitement is a big word to use, but I would say special. Opening day is always the most special for me as a broadcaster.
It just means that it's back, and that's the level of excitement that comes. Jason Prill is bringing that up with us today here in the Fast Lane. He's at JazzPrill19. They are at HC Howlers on Twitter, Instagram, or just put a .com to get the schedule. Jason, thank you for your time in the Fast Lane. We always look forward to catching up and look forward to the opening night. Oh, by the way, outside of opening night, which of the next nights? Is it the championship blanket Friday night? Is there another night that you're most excited? I'd like the stress balls on Sunday. That'd be my favorite giveaway. But I would imagine for you as the broadcaster, championship blanket night on Friday is the one you're most looking forward to.
You know, championship blanket night on Friday is going to be a lot of fun, but Saturday, it's for the kids' night. It's for CASA, which I know is a great charity in Lynchburg, and we're having some really cool specialty jerseys. They're on our Instagram page, on our Facebook at HC Howlers. You're going to want to check those out. You can bid on those. They'll be auctioned off during the game. You're going to want to get yourself one of those. It all goes to charity. It's going to be a great time. That's going to be a really special night.
I'm not taking the detour sound effect because you teed it up and hit the home run. But if you're not over at the Retro Rewind 80s event, I'll be going there on behalf of Rewind 1039 with my wife and a couple of friends of ours. If you're not at that on Saturday night, then you should be at the Hill City Howlers game because either event benefits CASA, which is a great cause in our community. Jason, look, I'd say thank you for your time, but most importantly, thank you for bringing up CASA and helping me remember about how this Saturday is a Saturday that can be great for kids in our community.
Absolutely. Let's make a difference for our community because these kids deserve it. So let's have fun. Let's have a great opening week, and we'll talk to you again soon, Ed.
Now, as well.
Now to NASCAR.
Someone who is down at the Rock, Michael Massey of FrontStretch.com, is with us here in the Fast Lane. Massey, great to be speaking with you. You were at Martinsville. I hope you enjoyed your Resurrection weekend down at the Rock. First of all, Is that your first time seeing a race? And yes, I'll get my usher on for a second. I cannot remember our conversation well enough, being distracted last week on the Front Stretch Happy Hour podcast of which I was so grateful to be a guest. I think you said this is the first time you've actually been to a race itself, not sneaking into the Rock. Is my memory correct?
Hope you had a great resurrection weekend as well. Yes, it was my first time seeing a race at the Rock. Wasn't able to go last year, so went this time, and it was unbelievable. It felt like you were covering a race back in the 90s. Really, it was really cool. Like the racing action on Saturday with the O'Reilly series was kind of old school, and that you had comers and goers with attrition, people having flat tires, taking them out, and then just the facilities there, media center, everybody's all squished together in a couple rows of tables, Wi-Fi that I wanted to throw my laptop at one point because it was so bad, and then the grandstands. Seeing those old press boxes and stuff, suites and all that, they look like they haven't really been updated at all, and just looked really cool to see. I couldn't imagine what it'd be like seeing a cup race there back in the 90s, but it gave me a little taste of that this weekend.
It is so cool to see that. Is the Rock, can we now establish, right now, the Rock is in a great spot. It's got its place. It's got its spot. It seems to be well supported for the truck and the O'Reilly series. It's not quite at the level where it's deserving of a cup race, but it at least has a home on the NASCAR schedule and should be part of those series as part of its own unique identity.
Yeah, I think so. I as much as I would love to see cup race there again. I'm not sure how it could handle it right now, because even just for the O'Reilly race, and it sold out last year. It still had a really good crowd this year, but it wasn't sold out. I was there several hours beforehand for the ARCA East race, and it took forever just to turn into the track to go through the tunnel, because there's just not that many entrances or anything like that. So if you had a cup race there and that thing sold out that first year, man, I can't even imagine the traffic that it would cause. But I mean, I guess they dealt with it back in the day. But it's a sweet spot where you knock out the trucks Friday, you run O'Reilly Saturday, and then everybody gets to spend Easter with their families on Sunday. So if they were to have cup there, I would think maybe you do like the Clash or the All-Star race there first, kind of the North Wilkesboro route, to see if it could handle a cup style event there. But yeah, and just you saw dirty air be a big factor this weekend as well, and that's the enemy of the cup car right now. So I'm not sure that the cup races would be that good right there right now, but the series that are racing there are putting on good races. So I'm happy with the way it is right now.
You and me both. I love seeing it there. I love it having a home, but we have to be realistic about what to expect with NASCAR at the Rock. We're always realistic with Michael Massey, unlike we are not very realistic with our lofty expectations for Brian Nolan and Trey Lyle, who just can't quite reach them. It's just the sad truth, Massey. I know we have to bring it up, but somebody's got to be the bearer of the truth here in the fast lane.
Yeah, those guys just live on cloud nine up there. Just I don't know. It's amazing that they can get out of bed in the morning and actually function as human beings. But you made me say that, not me.
Yes, sir. You're a smart man. You learn how to pass the blame. Massey, thank you for your time. We always look forward to catching up with you here in the fast lane.
All right, thanks so much for having me on, Ed, and I think you'll be happy this weekend, because I think Ty Gibbs is finally going to get that first win at Bristol. But I'll catch you next time. Thanks always for having me on.
If it happens, I mean, God help the rest of Lynchburg when it happens. How loud the scream will be. Whatever park I'm in, people are going to be wondering what's going on and why this guy is losing his mind around 2 7-year-olds. I'll be a good role model for them, I promise.
You do that. I'll when it happens, I'll poke my nose outside and see if I can hear you all the way from Goose Goochland County.
Yes, the loud guttural scream. Trey will pick it up and I'll bring it up on the morning warm-up. Massey, thank you for your time. Love chatting.
All right. Thanks so much, Ed. You have a good one.
Michael Massey of FrenchStretch.com here in the Fast Lane on W227BG Timberlake, WEJM in Lynchburg, WMNA, Gretna, Danville, Southside, VTR in Sports, Facebook Live and YouTube, and the app where you'll be able to listen to play-by-play. Tonight, we'll go to a coverage in just a moment of the NCAA Championship, UConn and Michigan. Before that, though,
And last but not least, or maybe least, the Virginia Tech Hokies.
David Cunningham of TechSideline.com with us here in the Fast Lane. David, great to be speaking with you. Virginia Tech men's basketball, they've lost some transfers. The one they might have wanted to keep is Christian Gerdak. Women's basketball, they've lost a couple of transfers, including Karis Baker and Mackenzie Nelson, both of whom they probably would have wanted to keep. We can get into the individual ramifications of that in a moment. But are the transfers for Virginia Tech men's and women's basketball of the players they wanted to keep more of an indication that this is an athletic department and program that can keep some players, but they have to be judicious about where they are deploying their limited resources, especially with football justifiably sucking up the majority of that?
Yeah, Ed, great to be with you. I think a little bit of that. I think part of it is when you don't have an unlimited budget and you get into this era now, the current landscape we're in, where players can basically set whatever ground rules they want and they can ask for whatever they want. Sometimes those asks are out of hand. They're pretty ridiculous. And coaches, I think in some cases might say, you know what, we don't want to pay that. And we're sad to see you go. But some of it might be role related. Some of it might be there's unhappiness, and somebody wants to play a little bit more or this role to be different. There's all sorts of things. The bottom line is, I think the women are a little bit different from the men, Ed. I feel good about where the women stand. Carly Wenzel, who earned All-American honorable mention honors, she's announced she's coming back. Yes, you'll lose Mackenzie Nelson and Karis Baker, but I didn't think there was anybody on this team that you would say, they're not really replaceable. It's not like you've got a Georgia Amor or Elizabeth Kitley or a Hannah Hidalgo on the team. Yes, it would be nice to keep that core together, but at the end of the day, if push comes to shove, if those offers or those roles or whatever they want is too much, you can't really stretch it that much, well, then it might be best to kind of part ways and do what's best for the program, and maybe they're unhappy. But with the men, I think it's a little bit different, Ed, because I think the men, in terms of NIL, rev share, the payrolls have gotten out of hand, and you're seeing that. What a normal player starter in the men's game is making is double, maybe triple what a player in the women's game is making. And so you look at the men, their payrolls are a little bit bigger in some cases, but I don't know that the Hokies, outside of maybe Amani Hansberry, Ben Hammond, and Tyler Johnson, really have the resources to retain a lot of these guys, because the price to compete is going to continue to go up. And if you aren't necessarily increasing it time after time after time, you're kind of stuck in this middle ground, if you will, where you can keep some guys, but as you said, you have to be very judicious about it. And you're not going to be able to make everybody happy. And it sucks because you're going to have to roll over parts of your roster. But at the same time, you got to prioritize some guys. You got to do what's best for you to compete. So I wouldn't say both situations are the exact same. They're similar, and it's the same transfer portal. But the deals on the men's side are much more explosive. And sometimes guys, in the Christian Gerdak situation, he might have wanted a starting role. Guess what? Hokies might not view him as a starting five. So that's a little bit difficult, right? He might think he can go somewhere else, be a starter, make more money, and the Hokies just aren't ready for that. And the tough part is if you don't have the extra resources to throw at a guy and say, hey, we'll keep you around for another year. You'll have a pretty big role, and then next year you'll be the starter. Well, then that might be a situation where you see a guy walk to the portal. So it's all complicated, Ed, and the difficult part is it's head spinning around and around and around for all these coaches because they really only have kind of 2 weeks to figure all this stuff out and target people. And as one head coach of Virginia Tech used to say, It's like speed dating, and you're doing it over a 2-week period.
David Cunningham, he's at the Real D Cunningham on Twitter and Instagram, and we are chatting with him today here in the Fast Lane. David, to women's basketball, you kind of gave us the overview of the transfer portal players. Nobody's on the Georgia Amor Liz Kitley irreplaceable level. Are there players that you believe Virginia Tech could bring in that could at least help replicate the production, and this roster could be a similar NCAA tournament caliber roster, or maybe even the pieces fit together better if they hit it right?
Yeah, I think so, Ed. Like I said earlier, I don't know that there was a player on this team that was not replaceable. Obviously, Carly Wenzel and Karis Baker were your two best players, and you don't want to lose them. But if push comes to shove and you think your program is going to be better off suited going in this direction, maybe you can't match an offer, whatever the case may be. Well, there are other players out there. You might have to, in some ways, as Moneyball once said, recreate them in the aggregate. But I think you can do that a little bit. I think Duffy now and her staff, they've got some good resources freed up, especially with Mel Daly and Kyla Freelon leaving, to go with Baker and Nelson. They've got a lot of young talent in that program too, Ed. Kate Sears is coming back from an injury, and they bring in Kaleo Anderson and Ariana Harris-Mott, two really talented freshmen. And it's like, okay, if you can – they already got Alyssa Latham out of the transfer portal, a grad transfer from Tennessee, who talked to some people around the program, and they're super excited. Duffy recruited her when she was at Marquette, and she's a Midwest kid. They really think she's going to slide in and fit right away. Right? This is how you keep it going. It might mean turning over the roster a little bit, but if you are good at evaluating and going out and getting the right players who fit, not just fit on the court, but fit your culture, I think you can really be successful with it. And it takes a lot of due diligence from the staff, but it's not like it's this impossible task, but you just have to kind of put your best foot forward and really understand the bigger picture of the situation you're in. Because as Duffy always says, it's not just about one player. It's about the entire program. And you can't really put an entire program's needs or one player's needs above the program. It has to be the opposite. And I think they're in a good spot moving forward. I think they 1,000% can replace that production in the aggregate and be an NCAA tournament team next year. It's a little bit tough to tell what it looks like now because the portal just opened today. There's a long way to go still, but Latham, I think, is a really good start for the rest of the offseason.
David Cunningham, the Real D Cunningham, Twitter and Instagram, TechSideline.com, the TSL podcast. We are at Fastlane, Ed Lane, and VTR in Sports on podcast platforms and social media platforms as well. David, Virginia Tech men's basketball. Is the Christian Gerdak departure the one where you go, we'd like to have kept him, but if you put a pecking order together, he would go third behind Ben Hammond and Amani Hansberry, and if you can only keep two, you keep Hansberry and Hammond?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would put Tyler Johnson above him too. It's difficult, Ed. You see a lot of teams going towards this giant front court of sorts. Michigan, who's playing in the national championship game, has just that. I think you obviously want to keep size if you're the Hokies. You'd love to keep Gerdak around. But at the same time, if you don't think he's ready for a starting role and he thinks he is, and he wants to get paid like he's going to be a starter and you don't want to pay him that, there has to be a pecking order. There had to be priorities of who you want to keep, and you got to cut it off somewhere if you are in that bind. If you are not a Virginia who can pay as much to anybody as it pretty much wants. Ryan Hodem has that luxury that Mike Young does not. That's just the reality of the situation. I'm interested to kind of see where this offseason leads. The transfer portal opens tomorrow for the men, Ed, because can they keep Antonio Dorn? They're going to need at least one, if not two bigs to kind of replace Gerdak Lawal. But if you can keep Hammond and Hansberry and Johnson, as I think they will, and they don't have any high school kids committed yet in this class. What do they do to round out the rest of their roster? I'm very interested to see, because I think they have the opportunity to go out and get talent, but who knows what those prices are. And I think the coaches are going to learn that about the same time we might.
Yes, indeed. They'll figure it out, as will we. David Cunningham of TechSideline.com with us here in the Fast Lane. David, eyes on men's basketball players. Do you have any right now, or is the main thing you're focusing on player retention of Johnson, Hansberry, and Hammond, and seeing who else they might be able to add after those retentions are prioritized?
Yeah, it's hard, Ed. I would expect those guys to be the retentions because they have not announced anything different. And those guys would be the priorities, but it's so early, Ed. And honestly, to be frank, these might be budget ads for Virginia Tech, right? I don't know where exactly the budget ends up when you factor in all the guys that are coming back, but you might be looking at it going, okay, who can we add for X? Who can we add for Y? Very much like the reason you are supposed to have a general manager or should have a general manager nowadays, right? That's what they're supposed to be helping you with. And Virginia Tech men's basketball does not have one right now. But I don't really have any names off the top of my head for you. It's going to be, we'll find out more as the portal opens and as kids take visits. Now that we've got the national championship games almost done for both the men and the women, it'll be very interesting to see who they target and who they go after. And simply put, who wants to come play with these people, right? Funny enough, Ed, on the women's side, Kimora Johnson, of course, entered the transfer portal from Virginia earlier today. She's very tight with Carly Wenzel and her family, and they were tweeting at each other on Twitter. Hey Carly, hey, come play with me, Kimora. Right? It's one of those things where good players want to play with other good players, and I'm not saying that that's going to happen by any means because I think Johnson will have a lot of good offers on the table. But at the same time, in both situations, the men and the women, I think you could see some really talented players interested in saying, hey, I want to play with Ben Hammond. Hey, I want to play with Imani Hansberry. But you might not know that until you actually get a couple days into the transfer portal and people are evaluating kind of all their options.
David Cunningham, we evaluate the options and we keep coming back to him because he's really good at covering Virginia Tech basketball, baseball, football, Olympic sports. He runs the game and is the managing editor for TechSideline.com. DC, thank you for your time in the Fast Lane. We will keep it locked to TechSideline.com. And over the next few weeks, we'll also be looking ahead to the spring game as well.
Much appreciated. Talk to you soon.
David Cunningham with us here in the Fast Lane. That does it for us today here in covering the Commonwealth and in the Fast Lane. On to pregame coverage for the NCAA tournament championship game tonight. TJ, quickly, who you got? Michigan or Wisconsin or UConn?
I'm going to go with UConn. They just feel complete.
Hard to disagree with that. If Michigan's winning, this is my one thing. If Michigan's winning, I think they cover the 6.5 to 7 because it would be because Solo Ball's injury is an issue. And then generally when you get a chance to get up on teams in the championship, and UConn's done this as well, you put the team away. Yesterday's women's was an example. Like if UCL was going to beat South Carolina, it was probably not going to be in a 3-point game. Yeah. It was going to be in we have them dead to rights, and we have to just keep on pounding them into oblivion. So this thing is so far out of reach. No offense to the opponent, but we have a championship at stake. It's what you got to do. So that's what you'll get. We'll find out how right or wrong we are tomorrow in the Fast Lane. In the meantime, coverage of the championship game right now.
Well, Alex Caravan netted a career-high 27 in the victory over the Bruins. The second-seeded Huskies, much to